Josh Reeves is a Dallas-based researcher, filmmaker, and radio talk show host who first learned of government crimes back in the 1990s by reading Jim Marr's Crossfire, which led him to start investigating black operations and secret societies. He gives his commentary and original point of view on news and current events, as well as information about chemtrails, secret ancient societies, bloodlines, hidden technology, Freemasons, and the overall plan of the global elite. His latest documentary is titled AI Armageddon, the Apocalypse Endgame. Josh, welcome back to Coast. How are you?
It's great to be here with you, Richard. I'm doing great, and it's just an honor to be back for my fourth appearance on Coast to Coast AM, and I'm really excited to talk about different topics other than the lost secrets of ancient America, which I talked about in my three previous appearances on Coast. So I'm ready to get after it, man.
So prolific. How many documentaries are you producing a year?
Well, until this year, I mean, really, I didn't release any films between 2017 and 2022. And then this year, so far, I've released 7 new documentary films, and the 8th will be out next week. It's called Fall the Movie. It's about the fake Paul McCartney stuff, and it's the final installment of my Spellcaster series, and so I'm so excited for that to finally be coming out next week. But yeah, 7 so far, 8 on the way.
All right, so let's get into artificial intelligence. And obviously, you do not think, or your research has led you to conclude, that the future or AI does not bode well for humanity and the future. Now, I know that back in the 1950s, I think there was a computer scientist, John McCarthy, who first kind of started talking about AI in lectures and so forth. And we had things like
the guy that coined the phrase artificial intelligence.
Yeah, John McCarthy. Yeah. And we had machine learning, which was, they used that in the Defense Department for guidance, missile guidance systems and so forth. Machine learning, but that's a far stretch from where we're at today. But how far back do you has your research led you to believe that AI was always in the cards? Let's say it was being planned out.
Well, that's one of the shocking things that I found in this research is that the idea of it actually goes back to the ancient Greeks, and the Greeks actually had these clockwork machine automatons in real life. And what's interesting about them, Richard, is they were found. The evidence of this was found on the island of Crete in the Mediterranean, where they also found the Antikythera mechanism, which was this clockwork device that could accurately predict the movement of the stars. And, it was made thousands of years before that kind of clockwork gear mechanism was even made. So, it definitely goes all the way back to the Greek days, this idea of trying to create an intelligence that is mimicking human intelligence. And what the usage would have been in those days is really murky. It's very interesting how murky it is. And then, you don't really hear much about it until into the modern day. And then, of course, in the 1950s, that's when it really started to develop. And like you were saying with John McCarthy and all that.
So let me understand this. This is very timely because I'm in Athens, Greece, tonight, this morning. The ancient Greeks had some sort of an automaton. We're talking thousands of years ago. This was discovered on the island of Crete. Tell me more about this.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Richard. I don't know much more about that other than what I've read and researched. And it's time and again that's come up in the research. And the Greek god Hephaestus was the one who was credited with being the guy that came up with the concept for these things. And like I said, he supposedly, Hephaestus was the ruler over the island of Crete, and where they found the evidence of these automatons, these clockwork automatons were on the island of Crete. And I'm sure you've heard of the Antikythera mechanism, right?
Oh yes, I've seen it. I've seen it at the museum, the National Archaeological Museum here in Athens.
Well, it was also found on Crete, on the same place where Hephaestus is said to come up with the idea for these automatons. So yeah, like I said, the idea of artificial intelligence goes back centuries.
So let's fast forward to the 1950s and John McCarthy, computer scientist, talking about artificial intelligence, or he coined the phrase. I mentioned, machine learning. When did it really start to accelerate? With the use of algorithms and when machine learning was when we started talking about, I guess, theoretically about maybe computers having sentience, in other words, being aware.
Well, the idea from the very beginning for artificial intelligence was to come up with a machine that could equal the intelligence of humans. And in the late 50s and early 60s, you had Alan Newell and Herbert A. Simon, who developed the logic theorist and general problem solver. And that was really when AI reasoning and problem solving by a machine first really came into the fold and worked. And then you had later what they called symbolic AI, which is now known as classical AI. And this was the main thing from the 60s and the 70s. And then in the 80s, there was a time period in the 80s where they called it the AI winter, where interest in AI for the first time ever completely dwindled. No one was putting money behind AI in the 80s. Nobody was trying to develop it at all. And then in the very late 80s and early 90s, that's when what you're mentioning, Richard, with machine learning and neural networks and all that stuff started coming in. And so through the 90s and then into the 2000s is when you started to have a major increase because of the computing power and processing power and available RAM and all that started going up. The big explosion started to happen around 2000.
And at that point in 2000, were the elites, let's say, already conspiring to figure out, well, how can we use AI to create sort of this autocratic, technocratic one world government?
Oh, absolutely. And I mentioned that in the film, Richard, that I think the idea, just from my research and looking at this stuff, it seems that the idea of this has been around longer than the technology to do it has even existed. And absolutely, and I know people get frustrated sometimes when we say they or them or whoever, but in this case, I absolutely believe that the people behind the idea of what you're saying, Richard, of using it to, for stuff like depopulation and things of that nature, I think that 100% those people who are interested in, I'll tell you why, who are interested in doing those things with AI and who they are is the subject of one of my other films that I came out with this year that I know you've seen, Richard, called The Climate of Fear, The Club of Rome. And I believe that those people in the Club of Rome who in 1972 teamed with MIT to create this program that manufactured this thing they called the Limits to Growth Report. And it was this computer program that MIT and the Club of Rome developed, and all of our modern climate change models are all based on this technology that came out in 1972. So they are on record for decades relying on computers to carry out their plans for depopulation and the rest of it. So there's no reason, especially when you look at what their agendas are and what they lay out in their Limits to Growth report in 1972 by the Club of Rome. People should look that up and read that for themselves because it's quite telling. And that whole thing was brought about by what the current technology of the day was, and that's what I believe, based on my research, is going on now. They are trying to leverage this technology, and I came to this conclusion because you mentioned in my bio, when I read Jim Marsh's Crossfire book in the 90s, and I started researching black operations and stuff. One of the things in black operations that they always give themselves is plausible deniability. And with AI, it is the most comprehensive plausible deniability, usage of any technology or anything they can do, because if they wipe out a percentage of the human population, they just blame it on the computer. They blame it on a rogue AI, whatever. It gives them complete and utter plausible deniability to do whatever they want to do when it comes to depopulation and achieving the goals of the Club of Rome. I want to tell people real quick, if you want to find any of the movies that we're talking about here tonight, please go to the Josh Reeves Global Reality channel on YouTube, and you can find all the links there. There's a Welcome Coast to Coast AM listeners video up where people can find that. And if you use the code COAST23 at checkout, you can get 20% off anything you get. So I just want to let people know that right out of the gates. But this film, the way this film came about for me, it came about because I had someone email me and ask me where I thought this stuff was going with AI. And when I, told them, replied, they freaked out and they wrote me back and said, "Why haven't you made a film out of this?" And well, I was just so busy with the Spellcaster series for so many years, of which there's now 5 going on 6 films. And I had started writing this film in 2017 and abandoned it because I was so busy with other projects. And when that person asked me that question, I told them where I think it was going. They were, "Why haven't you made a movie about this?" I said, "Yeah, you're right." So that's what I did. I took out this old script I had from 2017. I started writing it, and of course, there's been so much that's happened since I first initially started writing that film that, and I found out new stuff on my own research. That really now was the time, like you said, very timely. I think now was the time more than any other time for me to make this film. Really.
Well, yeah, it is very timely because it's almost top of mind. Everyone is concerned about artificial intelligence. Well, not everyone is concerned. Some people hold it out as a great promise for our future, that artificial intelligence is going to be able to solve many of the existential problems that we have. Whether it's creating nanobots that will consume all of the plastics and pollutants in the world's oceans, or whether it's going to, nanobots released into the human body are going to be able to perform surgery at the cellular level and cure cancer and reverse heart disease and so forth. You've got Elon Musk and the Neuralink, which is now going to prove for human trials, which will be the ultimate sort of brain-computer interface, which applications for people that are suffering from physical and mental disabilities perhaps could benefit.
Self-driving
And then you have
car
the flip
thing
side.
figured out first, though, huh?
Yeah, exactly. We've got the self-driving cars, which are not working. They don't have the algorithms right down yet, which actually might be kind of hopeful, Josh, because maybe we're starting to see some limitations here. The algorithms, driving a vehicle, a human driving a vehicle, and all of these external stimuli that the brain has to process in order to keep the car on the road, not hit a pedestrian, to be able to identify, a moving object and so forth. It doesn't seem as if AI has reached that level where it can do that. We're seeing self-driving cars, getting into all sorts of accidents, causing traffic jams and so forth. Is it possible that AI has its limits and will never be able to achieve what the Club of Rome or whomever else is involved, what they hope for?
Well, I don't know about that, because that's the whole thing about AI and any of this stuff, really. I'm not so concerned about AI itself. To be honest, like you were saying, I actually believe that there will be many great benefits that we will get from it. Absolutely. But I think the possibility of the negatives far outweighs the positives, strictly because, like I said, again, I'm not worried about AI itself. I'm worried about who is going to be in control of it. And when you look at who's been in control of everything else, like I said, mentioned that 1972 MIT Limits to Growth report by the Club of Rome, and how all the modern climate models and all that stuff, all the stuff on climate change came from that original 1972 thing. I'm worried what these maniacs are going to do. And if you don't know who the Club of Rome is, people can watch my film on it, or they can look it up themselves. But it's a who's list of globalists and people whose names are in the boogeyman list of the New World Order, so to speak. I mean, really, Soros and Bill Gates and all these people. It's unbelievable. And that's who I'm worried about having AI, Richard. I'm not so much worried about the AI itself or developers and stuff. Again, I think there will be some benefits, but that technology falling in the hands of these people who are already running this whole climate change thing on us, and conveniently leaving out all the data on the sun and everything. I told my listening audience months ago that the solar cycle, which starts next year, is actually kicking up earlier. That's why it was so hot this year, and why they claimed it was the hottest year ever on Earth, is because the next solar cycle is going to be the most intense one that Earth has seen in centuries, and it started up early. And I predicted that and said that, and then the news article came out this week saying exactly that, and that scientists don't know why the solar cycle is that solar maximum that starts. It's supposed to be starting in 2025 has already began. And so again, that's what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about the technology as much as I'm worried about the people who have it in their hands.
The Club of Rome, a precursor to the World Economic Forum, or are they? Is it just a branch of the Club of Rome, or do we see the same people involved in the Club of Rome also in the World Economic Forum?
Some of them for sure, but there's a lot of these different groups, Richard. As there's a lot of. There's the Club of Budapest too, which is absolutely 100%. Budapest used to be a communist nation. The Club of Budapest has a lot of overlap with the Club of Rome, and absolutely that's a socialist organization. There's no question about it. 100% is. That's not conjecture or anything. So I absolutely think that some of these different groups are essentially on board with each other, but some of them have different members because they draw in people from different aspects of the world than other ones do. Where the Club of Rome has a lot of people like Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands, and a lot of the big oil type people and stuff like that. They even have celebrity people like Bono and Bob Geldof and stuff in there. It's crazy. And if you want to know more about how shady Bob Geldof is, you should watch my Spellcasters Volume 4 film. Wow. But yeah, those Club of Budapest people are they're just really the tip of the spear for globalists and global government, so to speak.
Is it possible? I'm asking this, kind of playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. But sure. Is it possible that individuals in the Club of Rome, some of them are well-meaning, they actually believe in man-made climate change and that it will be catastrophic, and they see AI as our best hope to avert an environmental cataclysm?
Oh, absolutely. There's really there's a lot of stuff out there that you can find where it's pointing in this direction. Absolutely. There's a great.
Okay, Josh, I got to jump in. Apologies, I got to take a break here. Back with more of my conversation on AI with Josh Reeves right here on Coast to Coast AM. We're back with Josh Reeves, documentary filmmaker, and we're talking about artificial intelligence, AI, Armageddon, apocalypse, endgame. Once again, how do we screen the documentary, Josh?
Well, you can buy it in my download store, and there's various ways you can find it. If you go to coasttocoastam.com and you go to the search function at coasttocoastam.com and type in my name, it'll come up with my profile there on the website, and you just click on my name. And Coast to Coast AM has made it easy for you. There's links to the Josh Reeves Global Reality YouTube channel, and just go to any of my videos there and check the comments or the read more section of my any of my videos, and they'll have links in there so you can go to my download store and buy the downloads. And also the coupon code COAST23 at checkout will get you 20% off.
All right. Dr. Jeffrey Hinton, some call him the godfather of AI, and he recently quit his job at Google because he wanted to warn people about the dangers of, continuing advances in AI. He called it the technological Pandora's box, and he even went so far as to say he regrets some of his work and cautioned some of the against some of the potentially catastrophic effects that this tech could pose if governments don't step in and regulate. He says, right now, robots are not more intelligent than us, as far as I can tell, but I think they soon may be. According to a recent study, half of all AI researchers, half of all AI researchers believe there is at least a 10% chance of AI causing human extinction, with many warning that robots could be capable of human-like goals, such as attaining high political office, starting new religions, or even playing God. Wow, 50% of AI researchers think there's a 10% chance. Josh, do you think that's about right? Is that accurate, 10%, or is it greater?
I can't guess, Richard. I mean, it would be a guess. It would be exactly that. I don't know. I don't have any idea. But to go back and answer your previous question from before the break, yes, I do think there probably are some well-meaning people in stuff like the Club of Rome that think that they've been convinced, they've been brainwashed to think some of these things are the only way that we can go. But what's interesting too, Rich, is I read an article, I don't know, a few weeks ago, a few months ago, I can't remember when it was, talking about how a lot of these tech companies, that's why I don't like the doctor you mentioned, the guy that was developing AI and stuff, who regrets his work. Here's the thing, though, and I really do believe this. I think we have to be leery of those people as well, because from what I was reading, there's been several articles out about this, about how a lot of these tech companies are actually the ones that are pushing a lot of the fear-mongering when it comes to this AI stuff in order to try and help sell. They think that it will help sell their products if they help the fear-mongering. And that's another thing I want people to know about me is I am not a fear-monger. I am not someone who normally goes directly to worst-case scenario in any event. And on the contrary, I'm an optimist. I never go to whatever I think will be the worst case, worst outcome it could be. Not at all. No, this is not, reactionism or anything on my part, my belief in this. This is just from decades of studying the elite and, like you said, the Club of Rome and the people, the controllers that are running the world, and seeing how they have used technology previously to determine how they might use AI in the future. I mean, look what we did as soon as we entered the nuclear age. What did we do there, Richard? It's pretty clear. So, again, every time that these people have gotten this new technology, whether it be, originally the internet was the ARPANET and the DARPANET, that was created by, DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, originally as an internal communications thing, and then it became the internet. And so I just don't trust any of these people at all who are telling us about AI and it's going to be. I trust the ones that are telling us that it's going to be okay. Don't worry, everything's overblown. About as much as I also trust the ones that are also fear mongering it a lot too, because their motives seem to be questionable as well. But I think that in anything, there's always going to be, as we were saying earlier, there's always going to be positive things that can come out. But the real thing for me that really scared me was before the break, when the question you asked me about, do I think there's well-meaning people, if they're just going along because I think this is how they're going to save the planet and save us from climate change and resource depletion and all of that. Yeah, I think there's absolutely some people like that in there. And that's one of the reasons why I do the work that I do, is because you never know who this work is going to reach. You never know. Well, there might be some AI engineer that hears this show of yours tonight, Richard, and has a change of heart and says, you know what, I don't like the work I'm doing anymore. This doesn't look to me like it's heading into a positive direction. I don't want to do this. That happens. That's how we have whistleblowers and whatnot. So I think that even though the future and outlook of this stuff does look grim, it's really, we have to come to our own conclusions on this stuff. Don't believe me. Don't believe what I'm saying. I made a movie about this because I thought it was important, but I don't know as much as anybody. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe nothing happens. Maybe everything is good. Maybe everything turns out great. But really, that's kind of an unrealistic expectation when you look at who the people are who have used all technology up to this point for their own aims and their own goals and all that stuff. That's where my suspect nature comes into play, is going, I just don't trust the people that have this technology, as much as I trust the technology itself. I really think the technology itself is being developed the way it is, like I said earlier, because they want to give themselves that plausible deniability.
I agree. Trust is not a word we use a lot these days when it comes to the ruling elites or the technocrats. But even if they are well-meaning, if they believe that there is an existential crisis and we need AI in order to avert that crisis, their solutions using AI are still pretty grim. I mean, they're still talking about massive depopulation. Now they'll put some lipstick on that and say, well, but we want to do it peacefully and orderly, if possible. How do you think AI will be used uh, to reduce populations, or at the very least control populations?
Well, it already is. That's the thing. It already is. And there's a clip in my film, AI Armageddon, that I hope people buy and check out. There's a clip in there that I have where it's talking about how people who are now using AI chatbots as girlfriends and how that has affected the birth rates already. Already they've seen a reduction in birth rates already with this little flimsy little AI. I mean, yeah, that's the whole thing. As much as I don't see a good outlook for this stuff, at the same time, where it's at, I'm not real worried about where it's at right now. I'm worried about where it's going to be in a few more years. Where it's at right now, where this stuff where it's just pulling stuff off the web, all the AI genies and all that chat AI and all that stuff. Right now, it's not. I don't think it's as dangerous right now as it will be. But what it's doing is it's building up its brain power by people inputting stuff into it. If you use one of these AI chatbots, you are literally helping to train this thing, and they get smarter and smarter and smarter. So, I think that again, like you said, it's tough to be optimistic about this stuff when you see what's already been done with stuff like, the internet and how they've used it to restrict free speech in a lot of ways, and how they've used it to keep certain people like myself and their work suppressed from, a large consumption by the masses for years and years and years. I've seen what they've already done just with the technology we have now. And so to just even think about what they might do, not a guarantee they will do these things, but what they might do with it is enough to raise the alarms. And that's certainly where I'm coming from and why I made this film. Because I'm not going to sit here and lie to people. I am not an expert on artificial intelligence. I don't want people to get that idea. I'm a researcher, and I research a variety of different topics, and I've been doing it for over 30 years. And when I'm researching a film, I'm drawing from every element of everything that I've ever researched for years and years and years and putting that together. And that's what I think that we need more of in this world, is people who are just trying to stand up and do something because it's the right thing to do. That's why I do this. That's why I hope people will support my work, because I teeter on the edge of going under for good every single month, because I don't have funding from NGOs and corporations. I don't even have sponsors on my radio show. I have no outside funding. All my funding for my work comes in through my listeners and my supporters from donations and then buying my movies and stuff, because that allows people to know that I cannot be bought, because I can't be bought. These people don't have enough money to buy me. There's not enough money in the world to buy me out. I will never stop. I will never quit. And when I started doing, I just celebrated my 16-year anniversary last month of my show and my filmmaking. And, like I said, it's tough. Sometimes I barely make it. But you know what? I'm never going to quit. And that's what we need more of in this world. We just need more regular people standing up and going, you know what? I'm going to do something, anything. I don't even know how to do it. That's what I did. I didn't know how to make films or talk on the radio or have a radio voice or anything like that when I first started in 2007. But I had, at that point, 20 years of research behind me, and I just figured, you know what? Maybe if I take what I know and I take it out there to the people and I put it out there, maybe there's somebody else who's on their own personal journey of truth and trying to find answers to things, and maybe it'll inspire them to do something. And in the end, I think that's all we can do, is just try to inspire each other to try and get the masses awakened from their slumber. And I'm really positive in that element, because I think that there's more people aware of all this stuff than there ever has been in any point in human history. And so for that, I am positive. But the thing of it is, that's why I've made 7 going on 8 films this year, because, I turned 47 in July, and the ticking clock of Father Time looms large. But also I feel the ticking clock of us running out of time to expose the elite overlords' plan and what they're doing. So that's where this whole motivation to make 7 films in 1 year has come about. I hope people support my work and buy them because it's so important that I be able to continue, not for me personally or anything else, but just because I want to continue to be that example for people to show them that, look, it's okay. You're a regular person. I'm nothing special either. I'm just a guy who decided after 9/11 when I worked in the tech industry. I heard guys talking about this AI stuff 20 years ago. They were talking about 20 years ago. I worked for a software company that makes a major tax preparation software. I'm not going to say which one, but it's one you would know of. And guys were talking about 20 years ago. They were talking about how they were moving towards having tax preparation software that's completely AI and does your taxes for you. I heard antivirus guys talking about how they were going to have AI antivirus software. And so maybe they do now. I don't know, but that's for sure coming. But this is 20 years ago, Richard, that I heard these guys talking about this. So that's what I know, and that's why I got so emphatic about trying to do something, is because I've known for a long time this stuff is coming, and it's really scared me. And like I said, I don't spook easy, and I'm not a fear monger, but I really felt it was time to, yeah. start ringing the bell and putting the light on and trying to get
even the current iteration of ChatGPT, and I don't know what they're up to now, whether it's 4 or 5 or whatever. Even ChatGPT creator Sam Altman says he's a little bit scared of it, I am chilled by it. Already we have teachers, educators who are very concerned about this because students are using it to write term papers and essays and so forth. And I guess there is a way to detect it, but I don't know, the idea of AI creating new music. I'm not talking about what the Beatles did, the surviving Beatles, using AI to extract John Lennon's voice from a track that also contained a piano bed. That's different as far as I'm concerned. But when you're creating new music out of nothing.
Music out of nothing, yeah.
Yeah. All of a sudden we have a new song by Jimi Hendrix, and it sounds exactly like Jimi Hendrix, and he's playing, I don't know, a new song that's written by someone using AI. I mean, I suppose there's a bit of it's kind of entertaining and amusing, but we're losing our humanity. Like all of our new music, actors will maybe replaced. They're already replacing extras in film because it's expensive to hire. Let's say you have a battle scene, you've got 100 extras, or a courtroom scene, and you need 12 jurors. No longer do you need the jurors. They create them with artificial intelligence. This is what that concerns me: is we're losing our humanity, even if it seems like a cost-saving measure or it's convenient. We're losing our humanity.
Well, going back to something you were saying earlier about the self-driving car thing, is I didn't really get to answer your question properly on that. I don't think, to answer your question from earlier, Richard, that there's ever going to be a time where, no matter how good the computers and the AI get, that it's going to be able to effectively drive a motor vehicle the way that a human can. There's so much nuance and little things that are involved in driving and things that happen on the fly and on the moment, and it's using such you can feel the way your brain feels when you're driving. It feels a certain way when you're doing it because you're using all these different things all at once. I don't think that there will ever be a way to perfect. I mean, maybe it'll get better. The self-driving car thing will get better. But my point of that earlier was, hey, Elon, let's get the self-driving car thing figured out first. Then we can start putting chips in people's brains after that. Okay, let's not put the cart before the horse.
I think that's you're spot on.
I think that absolutely. There's it's what chills you to the bone. Again, Richard, is not for me. I'm just saying for me personally, not so much the technology itself, but who I know wants to get their hands on this and use it. That's what chills me to the bone. And that's why I'm scared of. All right. Because, again, for them to just blame it on whatever they want.
Josh, we're going to take another time out. We're approaching the top of the hour right here on Coast to Coast AM.